our team, the way it's built. We got talent and heart and character, and discounting us out of the series is a little insulting.
Welcome inside Bell MTS Place for the JetsTV Live pregame show presented by Budweiser. You're, of course, looking at the Winnipeg Jets morning skate, which just got underway. I'm Mitchell Clinton. With me once again is Jamie Thomas, the color commentator for 680 CJOB. And Jamie, we finally have a game to talk about. Isn't it exciting? Obviously, the Jets are going to open the second round of the Stanley Cup Playoffs tonight against the Montreal Canadiens, who eliminated the top team in the North Division, the Toronto Maple Leafs, in 7 games. But I mean, we're all hockey fans and just fans of the Jets in general. We don't need to know exactly what happened to the Toronto Maple Leafs. But first off, just your thought on this initial matchup, which you're seeing around, I guess, social media and a number of different places. Maybe people didn't expect, but both teams deserve a lot of credit for getting here.
Before the show started, Mitch, I looked at you and I said, I don't think there's enough credit is being given to either one of these two teams. And the Winnipeg Jets sweep the Edmonton Oilers in 4 straight. No one saw that coming. Anyone that picked Winnipeg to win the series didn't see 4 straight. And maybe you could say 5 because the game went into triple overtime. So not enough credit was given to them. And then the conversation was like, okay, here comes the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's the Jets' next opponent.
Yeah. And
then one by one, the Canadiens win Game 5, then Game 6, and certainly Game 7. It just seemed like Toronto was done. It seemed like Montreal was done in Game 4, and then it completely flipped the switch, and the script flipped because it seemed like Toronto had put out everything they had or didn't have anything left in the gas tank for when Game 7, especially when they fall behind 2-0. So two teams that figured out that the regular season meant nothing, and you're playing a different game right now and going up against two teams that didn't figure it out, in my opinion, that you have to play differently to win in the playoffs. So you have two teams that have two similar style of game. They're not going to give up a lot. You have two excellent goaltenders going here, and it's not particularly head-to-head, but two top-notch netminders who were not Vezina nominees, which came out yesterday. I know Carey Price had a more up-and-down season. Connor Hellebuck maybe could have been certainly in that nomination department, but I digress. So, long-winded way of saying it's very, very tough for goals in this series. Two teams that have figured out that you can't give up a lot. You're just going to have to be patient, and we'll see whose patience runs out quicker.
Well, and you see the Jets on the ice there, and something that they talked about a lot, especially yesterday, once they actually knew who their opponent was that patience, was that grind that they know that they're going to be involved in with this series against the Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens took out the 4th and 5th top-ranked point producers in the National Hockey League in the first round. Jets took out 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. It's because they, were settled in the game that they knew they had to play. And now you have both of these teams that have embraced that style of play. I hesitate to call it defensive because there's skill on both sides that can capitalize on a number of opportunities. But there is that certain way that you need to play in the postseason, and both these teams seem to have embraced it.
And they have. And both teams roll 4 lines.
Yeah.
I know Montreal has shortened their defense pairings. They kind of rolled 4, or just the 2 defense pairings in overtime against the Toronto Maple Leafs. But both teams are completely comfortable with rolling their 4 lines. They're not hiding anything. And, Paul Maurice touched on it yesterday. The line matchup, or the line, going head-to-head and trying to shut down each other's top line, that's not going to be playing so much because you're comfortable with any of your lines going up again. Now, Nate Thompson's not going to be going up against the Montreal Canadiens top line throughout, but you're not hiding or pulling them off the ice when that happens. So you have two fresh teams. Montreal might not be as fresh because of the grind of a 7-game series, but the fact that they do have those 4 lines, and both of them have a fourth line that is loaded with veteran talent, right? That you're completely comfortable leaving them out there. So 2 fresh teams in that department, and it's going to be fascinating how this works out.
Of course, you mentioned the Montreal Canadiens go 7 games against the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Winnipeg Jets sweep the Edmonton Oilers in 4, and it included a real memorable triple overtime victory in game number 4. Let's take a look back at that one, because really over the course of things throughout the first round series, we made sure we led off with that game recap, and I'm superstitious. Let's play it.
If it's going to take 60 minutes or more, it might take 60 minutes more. We got to be ready for that, knowing that they're gonna leave it all out there, because this is potentially your last game of the season, so they're going to come out fighting as hard as they can.
And it's showtime from downtown Winnipeg. Now for Wheeler, he'll move in, Fox's pass, a shot, they score! Mason Appleton with his first postseason goal. Mark Scheifele's second of the night will tie it. A big-time turnover by Edmonton. And there's a breakaway or a partial breakaway for Kyle Connor. He darts in, let a shot go. He scores! Kyle Connor is the series hero!
Try to skate as fast as I can. Our mentality the whole overtime is just get pucks in the net. So, that one feels pretty good.
Yeah, I bet it felt real good. Morning skate continues for the Winnipeg Jets behind us. They have a meeting at 10 o'clock, and then you'll want to stay tuned throughout the show. Obviously, we'll have the live interviews with the players. We'll also have a one-on-one we're expecting with Josh Morrissey, so you'll want to stay tuned for that one. Josh Morrissey, of course, assistant captain, had a fantastic series against the Edmonton Oilers, and that was a step that Paul Maurice felt that he took. Not only did he go up against Connor McDavid a lot and really held him to 4 points throughout 4 games, 3 of them came in game 3, even though the Winnipeg Jets still won that one. But Josh Morrissey was able to get 4 points of his own.
And there's a part of his game that has developed over the years, in particular since 2018. And I'm sure you remember this as well. Remember in 2018 where all the lights were on Josh Morrissey, the people that had not covered the Winnipeg Jets day-to-day like we do, kind of this gem. Like, oh, look at Josh Morrissey, he's a pretty good player.
Yeah.
And Paul Maurice consistently pointed out, well, there's an offensive side of his game that we haven't seen yet, because his responsibility is going up against the other team's best with Jacob Trouba. So there's an offensive side of his game that we're waiting to tap into. And now that he's on the power play for the Winnipeg Jets, you see that part of it that he had when he was a member of the Kelowna Rockets and the Prince Albert Raiders in the Western Hockey League. He's got both sides of his game, and now he's comfortable with that. And it takes a while when all you think about is defense first to get in that offensive side of things, and he's embraced it. He looks a lot more comfortable in it, and it only benefits the Winnipeg Jets on the long run here.
Not hesitant to shoot the puck either, which is going to be key in this series. And we mentioned off the top, and it's hard to go too far into the show without mentioning the goaltenders. So you have Connor Hellebuck, you got Carey Price, and we're all waiting for the official confirmation and whether or not the NHLers are going to be able to go to the Olympics and all that kind of stuff. You start to look at it. I mean, Carey Price, and Blake Wheeler said this yesterday, probably one of the best goaltenders of Wheeler's generation, as he said. And then you look at, so obviously Carey Price is Canadian. Then you have Connor Hellebuck, an American, arguably one of the best American goaltenders. This could be an Olympic preview, if you will. You don't want to get too far ahead, but they're going to be a big storyline in this series.
Carey Price's roller coaster ride through the last few years has been well documented, and when you play in Montreal, that is a tough place to play if you're a goaltender, considering the types of goaltenders that have played for that franchise over the 100+ years that it's been around. But you consistently, when you ask Mark Scheifele who's the toughest goaltender to go against, he says Carey Price. And you kind of raise an eyebrow because he has not been the Carey Price that we've seen in you go back to 2014 when he literally won the Olympics for Canada. He was, that was probably one of the best teams ever assembled on the ice, but he was the architect of that gold medal because of how well he played. But for Mark Scheifele to consistently say he's still the toughest goaltender to go against, now you're going to see him. And after each of those wins, game 5, 6, 7, did you see much reaction out of him? No. Because he's been around long enough realizing there's so much more to go here. And I'm so glad that glass was there. So.
And that is why it's
That's why the plastic glass is there. I'm getting so excited. I'm spinning here while I'm talking. So he's been so good in this series, and I really like how calm he was when each of those wins went by, even Game 7. You know, you've done all this hard work coming back, and he still was like this resolve and post-game, just no emotion. But that's just who he is. Yeah. And Paul Maurice pointed this out yesterday, is that either goaltender does not go up and down emotionally, and that's what you need from your netminder. And you can see why Carey Price has earned every bit of respect that he has, and he still, to me, is one of the best goaltenders in the game today.
Absolutely. A lot more still to come on the show, but first, before we go much further, it's time to check in to win. To participate, all you have to do is download or open the Winnipeg Jets app, and you can play interactive games. Test your trivia knowledge with Jets IQ for a chance to win an Aviator jersey. Take the over-under challenge as well, where you could walk away with a white away jersey, or play our all-new Jets Bingo with a chance to win instantly and be eligible to take home a Jets Heritage jersey. Plus, just for checking in, you are automatically entered for a chance to win a mystery bag from Jets Gear valued at $280. We've talked a little bit about the stats. Let's slide into the matchup board right now to be able to see how these two teams stack up in this contest. And this is from the first round. Obviously, you know how many games each team has played. We've covered it already. It's interesting to see that despite that, goals for are tied at 14. The Jets only allowed 8 goals over the course of the 4 games, 3 of them coming in game number 3. And goals against for the Montreal Canadiens, a lot of that coming from the early part of the series against the Maple Leafs. It was real tough to beat Carey Price over the last 3 games of that series. Power play. Jets power play is at 30%, is the 4th best so far among the playoff teams. The Canadiens power play is one to keep an eye on, and specifically for the reason that early on in that series against the Toronto Maple Leafs, they went, I believe it was the first 4 or 5 games, they were 0 for 14 during that stretch, and then they caught fire in 5, 6, and 7. To be able to eliminate the Toronto Maple Leafs. And their penalty kill at 87% is the best among postseason teams so far. So obviously the Jets power play will be going up against a very difficult Canadiens penalty kill. Over to the projected lines, and the one thing that we will say about the projected lines right now is this is based on how Game 4 ended and how practice has gone over the last week. We can literally say a week. It's almost like an NFL schedule. The Jets haven't played since last Monday. So Paul Stastny did not take the practice yesterday, but Paul Maurice did say that at age 35, you get a running option on practice, especially after 6 consecutive practices and 1 off day in there. Paul Stastny got the option. I'm looking over my shoulder to see if I could see him out at morning skate, and at this point, I do not see him, but that could just be my vision. The defensive pairs between Morrissey, DeMello, we talked a lot about Josh Morrissey already. That pairing played a huge role against the Edmonton Oilers. Derek Forbort and Neil Pionk, another group that's going to have to play well. This is a Montreal Canadiens team that has offense on a number of lines, but that was the case with the Edmonton Oilers. Maybe not the high-end offense of Connor McDavid on every single line, but still some guys that can certainly hurt you. And that line of Perreault, Thompson, and Lewis also played big roles in the series win. Stanley Poolman, I mean, what more can you say outside of, they were a huge part of the game. 1 win for the Winnipeg Jets, and Connor Hellebuck in goal finished with a .950 save percentage in the series against the Oilers. So lots to dive into as we get ready for this series. Jamie Thomas has headed off. He has a broadcast meeting because he's with 680 CJOB. Of course, you can listen to every single Jets game day on 680 CJOB, and you can see the morning skate going on behind me. The Jets have kind of got through the formal part of the skate, usually on a 9:30 skate, especially with a 10 o'clock meeting. What they'll do is they'll run a few drills, players can get the feel for the puck, and then it basically just branches off into skill work. Whatever the players want to do, a lot of times it's deflections. You'll see deflections on what would be the left side of the rink, and then over on the other side, it's just some work for the goaltenders as well. You can see the deflection group kind of breaking up now. And they'll move into some other work as well. So obviously the Winnipeg Jets have their pregame routine down pat at this point of the season. The defenseman will get some work on taking pucks. There's your first shot there. And so things to keep an eye on tonight. coming out of Game 7 against the Nashville Predators in 2018, the Winnipeg Jets, they rode a high, and Blake Wheeler spoke about this yesterday. They rode that momentous high into Game 1. There was only a day in between, and that was the day that the Jets used for travel. The Montreal Canadiens were able to get a bit of a practice in yesterday afternoon here at Bell MTS Place. It wasn't a full practice, but they did get some guys on the ice to be able to move around. So not a surprise after playing Game 7 in Toronto, and then the Canadiens came into Winnipeg in a similar fashion to the Winnipeg Jets back in 2018, coming home from Nashville's Game 7. And then the next day, it's Game 1. So you'll recall in 2018, the Jets came out absolutely flying. They took a big 2-0 to 3-0 lead in the first period and rode that to a win in Game number 1. And the challenge is the old rest versus rust argument. And you're going to hear a lot of that, especially over the course of this series. Early on, what you're going to be wanting to see from the Winnipeg Jets is speed, number 1, to be able to use the rest to heal up whatever bumps and bruises that they had, but then also be able to get out and get to the game that they really made themselves successful with against the Edmonton Oilers over the course of the 4 games. Now, a lot of the talk of that was about defense, but so much of that was being able to generate what they could offensively and be able to spend some zone time in the offensive zone, make the other team go 200 feet. That's something that the Jets are much more comfortable, a style of game that they're able to play. So you're going to want to look for that. If they're able to use that jump, especially early in the first period, to be able to capitalize on maybe a little bit more of a tired and fatigued Montreal Canadiens team, that'll be important. But of course, it's going to come down to goaltenders, as it always does. So we'll dive into a little bit more on the big line for the Winnipeg Jets, as we like to call them, and that's Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, and Blake Wheeler. They were the 3 leading scorers for the Jets in the series against the Edmonton Oilers. As we take a look back at them and their work, this is at 4-2 in Game 3. This is that zone time I'm talking about. They're able to create zone time. Josh Morrissey gets the shot through. Blake Wheeler goes to the net. You're going to see so much of this, especially from both teams over the course of the series. It's a matter of getting pucks back to the point, getting shots through, and then being able to get to the net. Now, those 3 players combined for 14 points, 6 goals in that series, and they seem to get just better and better as the series went on. You start the series with the assignment of going up against Connor McDavid's line, which kind of evolved over the course of the series, especially Game 1 to Game 2 for the Edmonton Oilers. But that was the matchup that Oilers coach Dave Tippett went with. He wanted to go McDavid against Scheifele, and so that's what they did. You got home, and Adam Lowry's group kind of handled a little bit more of that assignment, and that kind of freed up this group. And, I mean, there you go. That's arguably Mark Scheifele's biggest goal of the series, and he played just an absolutely spectacular game in Game number 4 when the Jets were trying to close out. This is his second of 2 goals on the game. A real nice pass from Kyle Connor there as well. And for Kyle Connor, this was also a big series against the Oilers. Obviously didn't have a goal in the return to play in the summer. A real tough situation to really base too much on, to be able to say, oh, maybe he's having trouble scoring in the postseason. I don't think that had anything to do with it, really. And we talk about Kyle Connor. Well, here's the big goal that he scored, and this is in triple overtime. He finally got a real good look. He had some chances in that game and over the course of the series. And, if he's going to get one, like he had an empty netter in Game 1, and then if he's going to get another one in the series and he's only going to get one more, well, I think all Winnipeg Jets fans will take the series clincher. And that's exactly what Kyle Connor got in Game number 4. So that line's going to have a lot to say in terms of how the Winnipeg Jets are able to do in this series. They're likely going to see a lot of Phillip Danault, who the Montreal Canadiens like to put into that matchup role. So how they're going to be able to handle that matchup is anybody's guess. But as Mark Scheifele always says, you want to go up against the other team's best at all times, and you want to, because it pushes you to be better, and then it forces you to try to win that matchup. And the Jets, of course, were able to do that against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Now, the other person that had something to do with that triple overtime winner is Neil Pionk. He's able to take away the dump in from Connor McDavid and send it back the other way, and that's what led to the triple overtime winner. And he had a pretty good series against the Edmonton Oilers as well. He finished with 3 assists, and really throughout the entire season, just another year for Neil Pionk where he was real solid defensively, making real nice defensive plays like that, but he also, led Jets defensemen in points once again, and that's just a real feather in a cap for a guy who came over from the New York Rangers, obviously, and maybe a lot of people didn't know a lot about him, but Neil Pionk just showed up in Winnipeg and just continued to perform. Put up career highs in a number of categories that first season in Winnipeg. And then, this is him against the Toronto Maple Leafs. He had a great season series against them as well. And he patrols the point on the power play units as well, which is something that we see a lot from both Josh Morrissey and Neil Pionk. Over the course of this season, they've kind of flipped on which unit they were with. Neil Pionk kind of started with the Scheifele unit, and now he's been with the Scheifele unit as well, and he's been with the Cop-Perreault kind of Lowry unit. However, it's kind of worked out. So these are two guys that one's a left hand, one's a right, between Josh Morrissey and Neil Pionk. They play together very rarely, usually when the Winnipeg Jets are trying to find a goal, trying to create a little bit of offense. They're both players that can get up and down the ice. We heard Jamie Thomas talk a little bit about the offensive side of the game that Josh Morrissey has. Neil Pionk has that as well. Now, the other thing to talk about in this series, and we've mentioned it a couple of times, and it's going to be a theme throughout the entire series, is the goaltending matchup. Now, let's look back at so here you go. This is exactly how it breaks down. You see Carey Price's save percentage in that first series at a .932, which you look at Connor Hellebuck's .950, spectacular numbers from Connor Hellebuck, and you go, well, maybe there's a little bit of an edge for the Winnipeg Jets in goal. Well, over the 3 games that the Montreal Canadiens rattled off to win the series against the Maple Leafs, Carey Price's save percentage in those 3 games was .946. So this is going to be real tight. And Connor Hellebuck, obviously, with his third career postseason shutout, that came in game number 2 against the Edmonton Oilers. But just spectacular numbers for Connor Hellebuck and Carey Price throughout the start of this postseason. A little bit more, perhaps, experience in the postseason for Carey Price, obviously being in the league longer. But Blake Wheeler and Josh Morrissey, and no matter who you kind of ask, they all have confidence in their goaltenders. So that's something to keep an eye on for sure throughout this series. We're going to be talking a lot about it. And as you see on the bottom there, Hellebuck leads all goalies in save percentage and goals against so far in this postseason. Now we'll slide into our season seat holder of the game because, the first round, our season seat holders of the game are 4-0, so fantastic work by them. Andrea Cluck is tonight's Winnipeg Jets season seat holder of the game, so a big congratulations. She's been a seat holder since 2011, so we thank her for that. Her favorite playoff memory, and I think it's a favorite memory for a lot of people, is the first home playoff game back in 2015 against the Anaheim Ducks. Now, obviously, that series didn't go the way the Winnipeg Jets would have liked, but man, if you were in the building or on the street or even around Bell MTS Place in 2015, it was something to behold, that first game back, especially the first goal from Lee Stempniak. Now, the other thing for Andrea is she was at the last playoff game of the 1.0 Jets, so for her being there in 2015 was special. So a big congrats to Andrea, and thank you for being a season seat holder of the Winnipeg Jets. Now, the other thing to keep an eye on, especially this week, not today, but tomorrow, is the You Can Play auction. And you might have remembered, you see those jerseys, the Winnipeg Jets wore those a little bit earlier this year. Hockey is for everyone, regardless of race, color, religion, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic status. The team celebrated the annual You Can Play game back on April 5th by wearing rainbow-numbered jerseys and using rainbow-taped sticks during warm-up. These jerseys and sticks will be auctioned off in conjunction with Pride Month. All proceeds from the auction will go to support the You Can Play Fund and the Rainbow Resource Center. Visit auctions.nhl.com/Winnipeg Jets. Once again, you see it at the bottom of the screen there, auctions.nhl.com/Winnipeg Jets to bid on these one-of-a-kind collector items. The auction begins on June 3rd, so that's tomorrow, and runs until June 13th. So you'll want to keep an eye out for that as well. Now, we haven't talked too much about the Montreal Canadiens. Obviously, this is the Jets TV Live pregame show presented by Budweiser. Why wouldn't we talk about the Winnipeg Jets, who are looking like they're just kind of wrapping up morning skate behind me. Just a couple of skills drills going on there. But for the Canadiens, this is going to be an interesting challenge because the Jets have been able to win the season series over the Canadiens. The Jets are 6-3 so far against the Canadiens. Now, we saw in the first round just how valuable the regular season series is. Not very, because the Jets were 2-7 against the Edmonton Oilers. So really, how much can you lean into that? Well, probably not a whole lot, and Paul Maurice would say that. Of course, you'll take whatever confidence that you can get from winning a season series, but 3 of those games were in overtime. They were 1-goal games, and of course the Jets have shown over the course of the season and the Stanley Cup playoffs they're very comfortable in overtime. The Montreal Canadiens at the start of the season, they really, really hated overtime. It was a long time before they got their first overtime win, and that was off the stick of Eric Stahl, who joined the team just prior to the trade deadline, and he was able to get their first overtime winner. So just kind of shows the impact that Stahl has had, and we talked about depth. I mean, you want to be able to have a guy like him, a National Hockey League veteran playing center for you. That's a real good spot. Obviously a spot of strength for the Winnipeg Jets, but clearly also a spot of strength for the Montreal Canadiens, who you run up the middle with Philip Deneau, Nick Suzuki, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and then Eric Stahl. I mean, that's pretty good. And then the Canadiens, partway through the year, were able to add Cole Caulfield, who they were able to pick up in the NHL draft. So he's a guy that can score some goals at key times. He's always a threat on the power play as well. And we talked about how important that power play was for the Montreal Canadiens. They were able to get that going a little bit later on in the series. So that's something to watch for. And then it's the blue line. Ben Sherratt, obviously a former Winnipeg Jet who was with the team for that 2018 run. And in 2019, when they lost in the first round to the St. Louis Blues, he plays a lot of minutes with the Montreal Canadiens paired with Shea Weber. And if you listen to the Ground Control podcast, which we'll get to a little bit later on in the show, you'll know that this top 4 that the Montreal Canadiens have, it's Ben Sherratt, Shea Weber, Joel Edmondson, and Jeff Petrie. They get a lot of minutes. You look back at Game 6 between the Canadiens and the Toronto Maple Leafs, all 4 of those, and yes, this game went into overtime, but all 4 of those defensemen were up in over 30 minutes, while their third pairing of Kulak and Gustafsson, Kulak didn't play Game 6, but Gustafsson were around 7 minutes. So you can see just how much they heavily lean on those top 4 defensemen. So we talked rest versus rust a little bit earlier. I mean, hey, this could either be an opportunity for the Winnipeg Jets if the series goes a little bit longer. Maybe those guys get a little bit tired because they play a physical brand of hockey. I mean, it's not easy going into the corners against these guys. And I thought what was interesting yesterday, Blake Wheeler held court with the media just to talk about the matchup with the Canadiens and whatnot. He was asked about Ben Sherratt. And he said, man, like Benny was one of my favorite teammates that I've ever played with. And I think part of the reason for that is the fact that both of them, you know, they're big, they're great competitors, which you have to be to get to the National Hockey League level. But at the same time, you know, they would go up against each other very often in practices. A memorable one in 2018 where there was a little bit of a skirmish just prior to the playoffs between the two. And I remember after the practice, you know, there was, you know, young me, a little reporter, curious about, oh man, like what's going on here? But I mean, Wheeler kind of laughed it off. Ben Sherratt laughed it off. Paul Maurice kind of said, you know, like this is just, it's 2 competitors that want to make each other better and they go at each other. And Wheeler said, you know, even prior to that, they were close friends, but now they're even closer. And he said in any other circumstance, you know, with Sherratt in Winnipeg, they would have texted, found a way to hang out or at least see each other a little bit. But obviously it's the Stanley Cup playoffs now, and there's not a whole lot of that going on. The Winnipeg Jets will be having a meeting at 10 o'clock, which starts in about 60 seconds. Shortly after that, we will have Josh Morrissey expected for a one-on-one chat, so we're looking forward to that. And, of course, throughout the rest of it, we will also bring you the interviews from the Matt Frost Media Room featuring the players and head coach Paul Maurice. The other thing I'm going to be curious to hear from them on is the adjustment going from a team like Edmonton who, I mean, offense. That's pretty much the first thing you think of when you think of those guys. And even on their blue line, you got guys like Tyson Barrie and Darnell Nurse. To go up against a team like the Montreal Canadiens where I think patience is going to be an important thing for the Winnipeg Jets because, you were able to generate chances off turnovers from the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, look no further than the Mark Scheifele goal or in Game 4 that tied the game at 3, or even the triple overtime winner, which happened, off a turnover from Connor McDavid. There's chances. Jamie Thomas is going to join us. Look at this guy coming in fresh off the broadcast meeting. But the Jets are going to have to be a patient club. That's just the way it's going to have to be for them over the course of this, because the Montreal Canadiens aren't going to give you a lot of easy offense. And even if you think it's going to be easy offense, and we saw the importance of low to high, getting the puck from the corner back to the D and then going to the net for the tips. Jamie, it's not going to be easy to get to those pucks with those 4 big trees standing in front of the net that the Canadiens have on the blue line.
Yeah, analytically, Montreal's defense is really tough to get by. And of the remaining teams in the playoffs, I think Montreal's defense is big and strong. That's probably like the toughest group to go up against. We've heard Paul Maurice use the term a real grinder.
Yeah.
And that's what this series is going to be, a real grinder. It's not going to be easy. We're going to be talking about low to highs. We're going to be talking about not turning the puck over in the neutral zone and feeding into Montreal's transition game, because we saw them hop all over the Maple Leafs whenever they made a mistake. They would get frustrated when things didn't go well. I think the Jets have kind of been in that mode for a long time to be very patient, and they can play this game. So it's just it's not going to be as wide open and free flowing as you would kind of hope, and that what you saw in Colorado and Vegas and the other series, and even Tampa Bay and Carolina so far. It's going to be tough to find real estate out in the ice right now. And still, I think you're going to find a lot of entertainment in this series, the way things what matches up with what, and who's going to shut down where, and of course the special teams are going to come a large role in this as well. But the thing I'm looking for here this evening is how long it takes the Jets to get their legs going. Montreal's been in this already. They're in that space right now because they played 7 games and just played 2 nights ago, and it feels like an entire other series has gone by since the Jets last played. So that's what I'll be looking for here in Game 1.
It really does feel like that. 9 days without a game.
That is a full series, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly, for the Winnipeg Jets. So that's a lot of practice. Today's morning skate, last and final piece of prep before Game 1 tonight. A couple days ago, Tyler Esquivel went down to ice level because he's in the bubble. He's allowed to do that. For the second to last practice session, which we get an up-close look at in Sights and Sounds.
Had some layoffs this year and kind of been up and down and how we've responded to those. Obviously this one's probably a little bit longer than those, but I think we'll be ready to go. I think we'll be fast.
We've had more practices in the last week than we had in 2 straight months of the regular season, so it's just different.
It's easy in a break like this to kind of get off your game, so to kind of sit back and really work on the details and not just work hard, but work smart is very important, and I think we have the right guys, the right coaching staff to do that.
A little bit of breaking news, I guess you could say. The NHLPA announces Sidney Crosby, Austin Matthews, and Connor McDavid are the finalists for the Ted Lindsay Award, which is, kind of your MVP as voted by their peers. Now, I guess no surprises.
Hard to
there.
argue with either of those.
Exactly.
You can kind of question the Vezina Trophy candidates in a small way, but really hard. You'd be foolish to even get in debate about who fits in where in that discussion.
Well, and I think if memory serves me correctly, it was Connor McDavid was kind of asked about this. What means more to you, like the Hart Trophy or the Ted Lindsay? And I think he said it was Ted Lindsay because this is the one that, and don't quote me, I believe it was McDavid. I don't know for sure, but when it's voted on by your peer, what's that?
It was. Let's just go with this.
Okay,
gospel.
There we go.
Yeah.
But to hear, it's from your peers, the guys that you go up against every single night, that probably, feels a little bit better, I would imagine.
I think so.
Yeah.
We all know how highly regarded we are as media sometimes to the players. So to have an award voted on by your peers, the guys that go up against you, and understand what you go through a night after night, it probably feels pretty good. That all being said, there's no question who's going to win the Hart. Even Ted Lindsay. I can't even imagine anybody thinking as a player who was the best player on the ice this year. It's not even close.
Yeah.
And I know Nathan McKinnon not in that conversation right now, but the way he's playing, it's funny how from a nightly basis it switches. Wow, Nathan McKinnon is the best player on this. Not even close. Connor McDavid. Stop talking.
Well, and one thing that we touched on a little bit a little while ago, switching gears back to tonight, is line matching and how, in series number 1, it started out, it was Scheifele line against the McDavid line in games 1 and 2 in Edmonton. Come back here, and it's Lowry line gets them. But the Montreal Canadiens like to use Phillip Deneau in that regard. So curious how you see some of the line matchups going tonight.
Well, I think Montreal can try that, and it's fine after a while. But to shut down, Toronto was not getting anything from anyone else except for that top line. The same with Edmonton. That was where the problem ends on. So when you have the Winnipeg Jets, you can shut down Scheifele and them, and Edmonton for the most part did that in games 1 and 2. But then you got to deal with Ehlers, Stastny, and Dubois, and Lowry, Kopp, Appleton. So Appleton's got his first playoff goal under his belt now, and you're going to get some offense chipped in here now and there with the dirty 30s. So I think it's fine if you take them out for a little bit, and Paul Maurice is not going to go out of his way to hide the Scheifele line from the Deneau line. You can do that all you want, but I just think there's a little more to deal with as you go down the list here. And that's one thing at Winnipeg, some may say they didn't get enough credit this year. They are deep up front. So sure, take away the top line, fine. But then there's others that can hurt you as well.
Well, especially we talked on the back end about the big four that the Canadiens do have. Do you see that there's a little bit of an advantage there? The depth the Jets have up front, I mean, regardless of whether you go Deneau and Scheifele, hypothetically, then maybe Suzuki gets the Stastny line. I don't know how it's all going to wait.
Right.
So maybe it's Kotkaniemi's line with Josh Anderson. But you start to kind of run out of D pairs, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, Paul stuck with all three of his defense pairing. He wasn't, Montreal cut to 4 defensemen in that long overtime against Toronto too, and they had some injuries on it. But Josh Morrissey is going to play a big role in this as well. And man, Dylan Mello is, I don't want to say a revelation, but just the quick, not the recovery, but the timeline where it took him becoming a father for the first time in quarantine is not easy for becoming a parent is not easy for anybody, but to be isolated from family and friends in that time, and then to take that week off that he did when the Jets went out east, took him a little while to get his game going, and then it's here. So Josh Morrissey, Dylan DeMello going to be counted on heavily, but listen, Derek Forbort, a lot of tread on all the tread off the tires because of all the minutes he played during the regular season, all those shots he blocked. He looked pretty tired towards the end of the year, so I don't know what happened. Maybe the switch has been flipped
Fountain of youth,
for him. But also, he looks like a new man, right?
Yeah.
And it was not an easy matchup for them. And I can imagine the anxiety for any of the Jets' defense pairings when Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl come down the ice. And I think you can kind of breathe a little bit, but not too much with Montreal. Montreal seems to be a little bit deeper up front, and I look at their fourth line, and Perry, Stahl, and Armia. Pretty good players.
Yeah, and the Winnipeg Jets fans know, what kind of things that, what kinds of things Joel, we used to call him Joel.
Yeah,
Armia.
thanks a lot, Joel.
That changed somewhere. Now we look like jerks.
Could have told us that when you were here. That would have been nice, man.
Yeah, exactly.
So Joel Armia has been fantastic for Montreal, and he's hurt the Jets, and most times when they come here too. But I think because each team is so deep in their different ways, and I'm going to cut off Montreal at their top 2 defense pairing. And I think Gustafsson, Kulak's clearly not going to get the ice time the other 2 are going to get. But this is, I think, in a 7-game, if it goes 6 or 7, maybe Montreal gets a little bit more tired. That's where that fatigue comes in. It's not going to be in the first 2 or 3 games. Certainly, maybe games 4, 5, 6, 7, but. It's the playoffs. Somehow these guys find something else or some type of energy that they didn't have in the regular season, and this dance that's coming up, it's going to be long, arduous, and I'm curious to see how things shape up after each game, because I think there's going to be a lot of up and downs. You think the teams are going to grab momentum in game 1, but it can come right back in game 2. So it's going to be long, folks.
Someone that could have a lot to say about that is Josh Morrissey. We'll go to him downstairs, and we thank him for taking some time out after the quick meeting that the Jets had. And Josh, I guess first question is, how does it feel to actually have it be game day after about 9 days of practice and maybe an off day or 2 sprinkled in there?
Yeah, it's nice to finally be, having our normal game day routine and ready to go here. The rest was great for us, and I think we had some good practice time, and we're all excited to get going.
What stands out to you? I mean, you look back to the first round series against the Oilers, and so much talk of it was Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and the work that yourself and Dylan DeMello did against that group, and you'll be the first person to say that, yeah, the forwards have a lot to do with that as well. Curious what you see as the challenges offensively that the Montreal Canadiens present versus what you faced in Edmonton.
Yeah, I thought we did a really good job as a team defending. Like you said, from the forwards to D to obviously Helly and net. It was a full effort by our group to defend against some of the best offensive players, and just as a theme, it's been what we've been trying to work on all year, and I think especially in the last 15, 20 games of the season. So it's nice to see that sort of coming together, and we're going to have to continue to get better at those things and as we go along. But I think what Montreal presents is a quick team, a lot of speed. They'll throw a lot of pucks to the net, and they'll go to the net, and they've got some pretty good hands around the net as well. So they're going to be fast and quick, and they really capitalize on turnovers and in transition off turnovers. So a lot of the same things for us. We're going to have to keep managing the puck well, and doing a great job of committing to full team defense.
Last one for you, so you can get on with your pregame prep. But I'm sure you saw the statement, or at least heard it a little bit. Just the fact that there's going to be around 500 fully vaccinated healthcare workers in the building tonight. Just curious from a player's standpoint. I mean, obviously 500 isn't 15,000 like you're used to playing in front of, but just to be able to have fans, especially healthcare workers, in the building tonight, what does that mean to you guys?
Yeah, it's just it's so awesome. Obviously it's been a really long time since we've had fans in the arena here, and it's sort of been obviously a very tough year, and over a year, I guess, 14, 15 months, and for everybody. And I think one of the best things about playing in Winnipeg is playing in front of the fans that we have here. You can just feel the passion of the fan base and the excitement, and the support for us. So, to now have some fans back in the building is just huge. And, on top of that, I think, really to be able to have the vaccinated healthcare workers coming in, what they've done for everyone and for our community and for, all of us in the last over a year has just been spectacular. And it's really great to be able to have them as the first people to come in, and hopefully we can put on a good show for them.
Josh, thanks a lot for this. Good luck tonight.
Thank you.
It's Josh Morrissey of the Winnipeg Jets joining us down from inside the bubble, I guess we can say. Didn't get your thoughts on this, just to be able to have some fans inside the building tonight, fully vaccinated healthcare workers. I'll get your thought on that in a sec, actually, because Mark Scheifele is now... It's all good. Mark Scheifele in the media room.
Be on our game. We got to make our plays. We got to do the right things all over the ice. But he's a fantastic player, and he did a great job on those Toronto guys. So we got to be at our best.
We'll go next to Sarah Orlesky from TSN. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thanks. Hi, Mark. The keys to being able to get off to a good start tonight when you've had the layoff that you guys have had. What do you see them as being?
Yeah, we've had a lot of time off, so we've had a lot of rest. So I think it's just a matter of getting ramped up for a game. We got game one of round two. The juice has got to be flowing. So we're all excited. We're all ready to get going. So we just have to keep it simple early. Not try to win the game in the first 10 seconds of the game. We just got to continue to play our game. Continue to find our game as a team, and be ready for all the challenges that playoffs hockey presents itself.
We'll go back to Sarah for a follow-up. Go ahead, Sarah.
Can that patience be a challenge just because of some of the emotions of finally getting into round two?
Yeah, obviously, we're all going to be excited. We're all going to be ramped up and excited for playoff hockey again. It's felt like forever, but I think we just got to settle the nerves. That's where the leadership on this team comes in, getting us ready for this game, and we just have to use that excitement and channel in the right ways and go from there.
We'll go next to Ted Wyman from the Winnipeg Sun. Go ahead, Ted.
Thanks. For Kyle. Kyle, you had a pretty strong series against Montreal during the regular season. How do you approach trying to create offense in a series like this?
Sure. It's definitely a different animal in the postseason. There's not as much time and space, and chances are slim and near. But when you get those chances, you got to take advantage of it. And for us, it doesn't really change our mentality from the Edmonton series, the way we want to create offense. We want to get possessions. You want to be in the right spots in the slots, and a lot of movement in the offensive zone. Create chaos and open up a lot of seams for us.
We'll go back to Kelly Moore from CJOB. Go ahead, Kelly.
This one is for Kyle. Even if you don't count the 2 empty net goals, Kyle, you guys still outscored Edmonton 8-1 in the third period and overtimes combined. Was that more depth or more patience that you would credit that for?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I mean, we all know we can score top to bottom. We got 4 great lines that can produce, and that's definitely one of our strengths. And not to mention goaltending. I think even in that second overtime, I remember we had a couple shifts just getting hemmed in, and Helly stood on his head, so he definitely played a big part of it. But to that point, I think our depth was crucial in that first series, and we're going to need it again.
We'll go back to Ken Weeb from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Weaver.
And for Kyle, what do you enjoy most about the challenge of going up against a pairing like Weber and Sherratt?
Yeah, we're pretty familiar with Benny. And I mean, Weber too. We played him, 8-9 times this year. We know what we're going to get. But, I'm looking forward to the challenge, to one of the best defensemen in the league. And, they go up against the other team's best every night, and, they take pride in it. And, we take pride in producing offense. So it's going to be a great series. Looking forward to the battle. But I think, our game plan, we got to get pucks in behind them and, finish our checks every chance we can. And it's going to be a long series. We know that they're coming off pretty tough 7 games here, and we have 4 in 6 days, so we got to get to these guys as much as we can.
Go next to Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press. Go ahead, Jeff.
This one's from Mark. Mark, Blake kind of mentioned yesterday, it's no secret that the goaltending is going to be a talking point in this one, just given who you guys have in net, and obviously with Carey Price for them. As a player, how much you get? I imagine you get confidence from a lot of things, as Kyle just mentioned, the depth of forwards, the play of your defense. But is it a different confidence knowing who you have between the pipes when it's someone like Connor Hellebuck?
Oh, for sure. Obviously, we rely on Helly heavily. He's the backbone of our team. He keeps us in games. He's that calming presence back there, and we definitely wouldn't be where we are today without him. So. But we want to be good defensively in front of them. We know what Montreal can bring offensively, and we got to be good in front of them. We got to be willing to make those sacrifices and know that he's going to make those saves for us. But that means we still have to be good defensively. We still got to be good offensively, and but it always is nice having having a Vezina winning goaltender backstopping you.
And final question to Jean-François Chaumont from the Journal de Montréal. Go ahead, Jean-François.
Hi, question for Mark. You've been talking about Connor Hellebuck. What do you like on the other side about playing against Carey Price, or what you don't like about playing against Price?
Yeah, he's a fantastic goaltender. He's been one of the best goaltenders for the last number of years, and you saw in that Toronto series, he made so many big saves to keep him in games, in overtime to keep him alive. So he's definitely he's the backbone of their team. We have to get to him for sure, but it's just a matter of doing the right things over and over and over, and capitalizing when you get the chance, and that's all you can do.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks, Gregor.
Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor talking about Connor Hellebuck, and obviously he's going to be a big part of things. But first, I'll let you finish your thought on the having vaccinated healthcare workers.
What were we talking about again?
Yeah, something like that. But yes, vaccinated health workers in the building, around 500 of them tonight.
It's fantastic. First off, I think you go back to Saturday in the game at Bell Center with Montreal and Toronto. It was Game 6, and as no one with any stake in the game, you were kind of cheering for the Canadiens in Game 5 because you just wanted to see a building in Canada have something in it. We've seen everything south of the border. The buildings are 3/4, sometimes fully full. A little bit of jealousy kicks in at that point. So you watch the game on Saturday in Montreal, and I got emotional because it's been a long time. It's been a long stretch for all of us up here. And you know what? we should. I'll make this quick because Matthew Perreault's on the way here right away. It's neat. It's no one deserves. I shouldn't say that. Let me say this carefully. They deserve this opportunity to be in this building. They've done a lot for us as a province. So for them to be in here, to be fans and kind of get their mind off everything that's going on around us right now, it's a great opportunity for 500 people, and it's a great opportunity for True North as an organization to show their appreciation this way, and for the Winnipeg Jets players to show their appreciation as well. So it's a really cool moment. Glad I get to be here for it, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, looking forward to it. Matthew Perreault now downstairs.
Is your style like a right on you versus, I don't want to compare to Toronto, but what you're expecting with that kind of play Montreal brings night in, night out?
Yeah, they play a great team game. They do it as 5 guys on the ice. They work really hard defensively. They have a great goalie, so they just play good playoff style of hockey. So this is kind of what we also do. So I'm expecting a hard, and I'm expecting a great series.
Go next to Kelly Moore from 680 CJOB. Go ahead, Kelly.
Hey, good morning, Matthew. I remember asking you before the first game against Montreal how special it was for you to play the Canadiens. So I can't remember if you ever played against them in the playoffs with Washington. Nope. But certainly I would have to think this has to be over the moon for you to play them in a playoff series.
Yes, first time. So very excited about it. As a kid growing up in Quebec, this is kind of a, almost a dream, to have a chance to play against the Canadiens in the playoffs. So super excited. I know all family and friends are going to be watching. Maybe some of them will be cheering against me for this one Pacific series. So it's going to be fun.
We'll go back to Kelly Moore for a follow-up. Go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, and speaking of family and friends, Matthew, how heated do you think it could get with the text? I don't know if you'll have direct conversations, but are you planning for a little bit of name calling and trash talking?
No, I don't think so. For this series, I'll just kind of stay away from my phone, and maybe after the series, we'll go at it.
We'll go back to Ted Wyman from the Winnipeg Sun. Go ahead, Ted.
Matthew, on that note, as one of the only two bilingual players on the team, do you expect to be doing an awful lot of media in your home province?
Yeah, obviously, me and Doobie are the only two that can speak French, so I'm gladly going to do so. It's never a real problem for me.
We'll go next to Jonathan Bernier. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Ouais, salut Mathieu. Toujours sur ce sujet-là, est-ce que ça va être difficile de rester un peu dans ta game et de ne pas essayer d'en faire trop? Est-ce qu'il y a un danger à ce niveau-là, de jouer contre les Canadiens et d'essayer peut-être de trop en faire?
Ouais, non, je crois pas. Pour moi, c'est la game de hockey quand le jeu commence, que ce soit le Canadien ou une autre équipe, mon style ne changera pas. Moi, jouer de la même façon. Donc, coup que la rondelle elle tombe sur la glace puis qu'on joue au hockey, c'est du hockey pour moi, ça ne changera rien, non.
Go next to Luke Shelenoff from LDS. Go ahead, Luke.
Thank you very much, Gregor. Mathieu, les équipes qui vont loin en série ont souvent la contribution importante des joueurs de 3e et 4e trio. Comment tu vois ce que toi, Thompson et Lewis, vous pouvez apporter à l'équipe et contribuer contre le Canadien? Vous l'avez déjà fait un peu contre Edmonton, je pense, offensivement.
Oui, certainement. Je pense que même les 4 lignes ont beaucoup l'accent sur le jeu défensif avec le gardien qu'on a ici. Si on peut fermer le centre de la patinoire, laisser les tirs de l'extérieur et les rondelles qu'il voit de l'extérieur, il les arrête. Donc, puis nous, notre ligne, on n'est pas reconnu pour marquer des buts, mais notre force, c'est d'amener de l'énergie, amener l'échec avant. Puis on a assez de talent pour, quand il y a une chance présence, de laisser nos skills prendre le dessus puis la mettre dedans. Donc, c'est un peu la mentalité qu'on a ici, la 3 et 4e ligne. Puis, on sait ce qu'on a sur les 2 premières lignes. Beaucoup de vitesse et des gars qui sont capables de marquer. Donc, une équipe bien balancée.
We'll go next to Martin McGuire. Go ahead, Martin.
Thanks, Gregor. Bonjour, Mathieu. Vous êtes 2 équipes qu'on n'attendait peut-être pas en finale de la Division Nord. Vous avez battu 2 équipes très talentueuse, à jouer un jeu assez linéaire, systématique. Comment tu penses que ça va teinter votre série contre le Canadien d'avoir toutes les deux des histoires semblables avant de vous retrouver en finale?
Ouais, c'est ce que j'ai mentionné un peu tantôt. Ça va être une série qui va être très difficile. Deux équipes qui jouent très bien défensivement avec des gardiens qui s'ils voient la rondelle, ils l'arrêtent pratiquement 100% du temps. Donc, ça va être l'équipe qui va être prête à aller devant le filet un peu plus que l'autre, l'équipe qui va être déterminée à bloquer un lancer de plus que l'autre, à gagner une bataille de plus. Donc, ça va être du hockey comme ça. Puis, on espère que c'est nous qui va être capables de faire cette différence.
Go next to Simon Olivier Lorange from La Presse. Go ahead, Simon.
Salut Mathieu. Contre les Oilers, vous avez marqué beaucoup de buts, notamment grâce à l'avantage numérique, mais à 5 contre 5, ça n'a pas été une machine offensive, si on veut. Vous retrouvez contre le Canadien, qui est une équipe probablement mieux rodée défensivement avec un meilleur gardien. Est-ce qu'il y a des ajustements que vous pensez faire? Est-ce que la stratégie va être différente?
Non, je crois pas. Honnêtement, on est confortable dans une game 1-0, 2-1. On n'est pas à la recherche de plus d'offensive. On veut jouer le même système. On donne rien, on se défend. Puis, quand une opportunité se présente, on la prend, on essaie de marquer un but. Donc, pour nous, c'est vraiment pas quelque chose qui est mentionné ici. On est très confortable de jouer des matchs de 1-0, 2-1.
And final question, Jean-François Chaumont from the Journal de Montréal. Go ahead, JF.
Thanks, Gregor. By the way, you're pretty good with the French name. It's rare. Mathieu, petite question. Vous n'avez pas joué depuis le 24 mai. Les Canadiens, eux, ont joué avant-hier. C'est peut-être difficile de prédire. Est-ce que c'est l'adrénaline? Est-ce que c'est le repos qui va avoir l'avantage pour le premier match? Comment vous voyez ce facteur-là du côté des Jets?
Moi, je peux parler pour moi personnellement. Le break, ça a été génial pour les petites blessures, les petits bobos que les gars pouvaient avoir. Donc, ça, c'était génial. Puis, je me demandais justement un peu pour le côté émotionnel. Si tu n'as pas joué aussi longtemps, ça ne revient pas. Puis, je me suis levé ce matin, pendant l'aréna, en sachant que j'allais jouer ce soir. J'ai recommencé à avoir les papillons. Donc, ça revient juste en un clic de doigt. Honnêtement, en série, c'est comment je dirais ça? L'excitement, il est là. Désolé, je ne trouvais pas le mot en français. Donc, honnêtement, je pense pas que le break de 10 jours va changer sur le côté émotionnel. Je le sens déjà moi-même juste ce matin en me levant.
Merci beaucoup, Mathieu.
Ça fait plaisir.
You know, the last reporter there kind of gave the shout out that I was going to give. Gregor Buer from the Jets communications staff, dominating. And he's going to be probably an unsung hero in this series.
Back in his Hockey Canada days, because I think it's important that you speak both languages, apparently, when you work for Hockey Canada. So, great work for Gregor Buer. He's been fantastic in that role all year long. So, I guess what we were talking about is fans in the stands.
Yes.
I think 500 people can bring some pretty good noise.
I think so.
And you always look around the place. Hey, they could fit him in here. All of a sudden, you become an expert. Like, you could put some people here. I think we get 1,000 in here. 1,500. Throw some people in the suites or whatever. There's got to be some way. But to start at 500 is pretty good. And the people that are coming here are well deserving of those seats.
Last Connor Hellebuck question for you. I promise.
Today.
Yeah, of the day. Yeah, and then we'll get to tomorrow or post game or however it all works.
Rejig the words.
Yeah. What does he need to do kind of in game one? It's easy to say, continue your series, but it's been 9 days. He's had his one-on-one session with Wade Flaherty a few days ago, something that he likes to do before a playoff series. Just curious what you expect from him tonight.
Still that focus that we've seen from him so far. I just wonder, that long layoff is tough on anybody, but to get back into game action, it will be very important for him. I go back to that final game against Toronto, and that one goal he let in from Engvall, and you were wondering is he ready? But he's been like that all the way. So to answer your question, I think he'll still be the same person as, but it's going to be very difficult to kind of get thrown right back into the scheme of things for a goaltender.
Head coach Paul Maurice, I'm sure we'll speak about that and plenty more from the Media Center.
We'll get going with Paul Friesen from the Winnipeg Sun. Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you, Gregor. Paul, any lineup changes expected?
Yeah, we've got our standard questions on a couple of guys, but I think we're in pretty good shape.
We'll go next to Ted Wyman from the Sun. Go ahead, Ted.
Paul, what will it mean to you to have even a few fans in the building tonight?
Oh, it would be just so great. It's been so long. There's definitely an anticipation for what it's going to feel like, really. Just the sense of a chance of a change, of a return to some kind of normal. We'll take it. I mean, it's going to be great.
We'll go next to Ken Weeb from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Weber.
Good morning, Paul. What kind of challenges does the Canadiens' back end present, especially with some of their size? Obviously, you're very familiar with Ben Sherratt.
Yeah, they've got a great mixture there. When you combine it with Carey Price, very difficult to get to the net on, and they're able to move the puck. They've got some good puck movers back there, but they're all of good size and strength. So getting the puck off the wall is a challenge, getting possession of it off the wall and then moving with it. When you got a back end, they can close too, right? They can get to you. They can get it stopped on the wall. That's why they're as stingy as they are. You just have to hope that you can play in their end long enough that over a period of time that you can, put some miles on those guys, but that's no different than any other team. They're structured very well as a group of five, and then they've got, the two men with good size and good strength in their pairings that can kill plays.
We'll go next to Sarah Orlesky from TSN. Go ahead, Sarah.
Paul, will your plan be to have any extras take warm-up?
Yeah, we always have an extra forward and an extra defenseman available. That won't change.
So they will take warm-up, though?
I haven't decided whether anybody's taking warm-up or not.
Thank you.
We'll go next to Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press. Go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, Paul. Blake was preaching patience, I believe it was yesterday. How much of that is knowing that Montreal is coming off an emotional series and not wanting to necessarily match that energy, if you will, or emotion to kind of let the game play out because of how long you guys have had off, versus maybe patience towards scoring opportunities and knowing that the guy between the pipes isn't going to be an easy take?
Yeah, I think patience is smart in that. I think the record of teams that come off a 7-game series against teams that won the series in 4 is over 500, I think, about 8-7. So they're going to have that kind of edge early. So the patience is mental in that what the first 10 minutes may not look like the next 10 minutes, and you have to just kind of be prepared to build in this game. Playoffs is not normal, right? It's not the normal operating emotional level for professional athletes because you just can't. So they've had the advantage in that they're in their rhythm, they're in that emotional level, and we've come out of ours, and there's no other way not to. So we have to find that again and find the rhythm that goes with it. So we may need some patience to do that.
We'll go next to Kelly Moore from 680 CJOB. Go ahead, Kelly.
Thanks. Hey, good morning, Paul. I'm glad you brought up that team that sweeps versus team that went deep matchup, because at least I have it from 86-87. The team that won game one in that particular scenario won 80% of the time. So how much importance is there on this series opener considering this particular scenario?
Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, the math is what it is. And I think when you start looking at, the 80% number on, and there's going to be somebody who runs numbers that's going to tell me I'm wrong. But if you're looking at 80%, let's say that a team the team that wins game one wins a higher percentage of the series. That factors in a lot of 1-8 seeds. And you get to 1-8 seeds, there's usually a pretty significant difference, historically between the 1 seed and the 8 seed. But I think if you looked at, 2-3 seeds or 3-4 seeds or those teams that are next to it, I don't know if it's as true. You get a feel. You think you have a feel for what each series is going to look like. I think in terms of tightness and closeness, they've got overtime wins in theirs, and we do too. These are going to be tight games. Winning the first game in a tight manner, I don't think is going to break the other team's belief that they can win. I think these are all going to be really tight games.
We'll go next to Arpon Basu from The Athletic. Go ahead, Arpon.
Thanks, Gregor. Hey, Paul. I'm just wondering what are some of the points of emphasis or priorities that you've placed on your team in terms of avoiding allowing the Canadiens to feed off their forecheck and feed off turnovers? What do you guys have to do to not allow them to do that?
Yeah, so their forecheck and our forecheck are trying to do the exact same thing. It's about creating that chaos and creating those zone times. And so the forecheck part of it is about speed for us. We want to go back, match that speed, get it, move it, and be sharp with that. The turnover is a mindset. And you got to accept the fact that one of the things that Montreal does exceptionally well is they don't let you get the puck from your end to possession in their end. They do a really, really good job of changing possession by their blue line. And if you aren't comfortable with that, if you think that you can pick your way through that, you're going to turn pucks over. And you saw it in the last series, and you saw goals end up in Toronto's net because of that. So no team wants to dump the puck. Zone entries are an important performance indicator. The team that usually carries the puck across the other team's zone blue line more has a better chance of creating things, clearly. But you have to play the game that's paid in front of you. We know that the Montreal Canadiens they excel in that area, so we have to be really smart with what we do. So the turnovers are mentality. The breakouts and handling their forecheck in some ways is the physicality. You got to be ready for that physical contest in your own end.
We'll go next to Eric Engels from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Eric.
Thanks, Gregor. Paul, when most people talk about the Montreal Canadiens, they talk about Carey Price, they talk about the defense. I think it's justifiable that they don't necessarily turn to the offense right away with the numbers that you look at from the last series. But how do you view their offense and the variety that's there in contrast with what you just faced in the last series?
So if you take that series out and you just look at historical, I'm going to say regular season, they have been a high event team. They put an awful lot of pucks at the net. They shoot a lot of pucks, and I don't know Corsi anymore, but when you look at the generation of offense in most of the analytical models, they're high at that. So you would say, if you didn't watch the Montreal Canadiens, you just looked at those numbers, you say these guys generate an awful lot of offense. They do. They just do it on a volume event. So they're going to put in a lot of pucks to our net. They're going to have a lot of traffic to the net. And that, to me, is just playoff hockey. So I'm going to say that their offensive game is a lot better than people give it credit for, and it's built for playoff hockey. Now, you play Toronto, because Toronto is such a puck possession team and they have it an awful lot, you're just not going to get as many opportunities to put the puck to the net. It's not that they're trying to make a bunch of plays and their offensive game is poor. Toronto's a real good puck possession team. Edmonton is a real good puck possession team. They have control of it an awful lot. So I think their offensive game is built for the playoffs. They're going to put pucks to the net, and they're going to put a lot of bodies to the net. They got a bunch of guys. Just look at the numbers of point shots from their defense in the last series. They got a bunch of guys that can heat it up from the blue line, and that's going to be their game, which is the playoff game, which means they're going to be very good at it.
We'll go next to Luke Jelena from RDS. Go ahead, Luke.
Thank you, Gregor. Of course, we're all going to watch the first two lines on each side, but do you feel in this matchup, especially against Montreal, maybe the third and fourth line can make a big difference for your team, maybe?
Well, it's funny. It depends really how you're going to number those lines. If you don't number it by offense and you just number the lines by who comes off the bench first at home, right? That tells you the matchup. There's some pretty good offense coming off the bench, third and fourth. And I think what you'll see here is you're going to see two teams use their whole bench. I think it was harder to use the whole bench against the two teams that we each played. So if you've got Matthew and you've got Marner coming off the ice, or you've got Draisaitl and you've got McDavid coming on the ice, you're stuck to one or two lines you're playing against them. And so you've got your number one matchup you want, your number one set of D you want. And everybody else kind of takes second stage to that. You'll get those other guys out whenever you can, but you got to shut those guys down. Now, I don't think that they'll be quite. I mean, we've got the Mark Scheifele line, but even in the first two games of our series against Edmonton, they weren't as offensively dynamic as you might have thought. I think both teams run their whole bench, and I think you're exactly right. It's going to be, you may have an equal chance to get a goal from each line, if that sounds crazy, because you've got some really good offensive players maybe in the top two, but you know how that works. They cancel each other out. So everybody has a fair chance to score here. Your fourth line, their fourth line, everybody's got a shot at being a hero.
And final question to Jeff Hamilton from the Free Press. Go ahead, Jeff.
Gregor. Paul, you had mentioned, I think it might have been once, maybe a second time during that Edmonton series, that you thought, and I think I might ask you about the physicality, and you felt like there was another level for your team, sense of aggressiveness almost. It seems like Montreal will welcome that part. They're a bigger team. They're a more physical team. How do you feel your team's going to adapt to that after a series with Edmonton that maybe wasn't as physically demanding?
Yeah, I think that you're going to see almost the same physicality that we had in the Edmonton series. Like, you go back and you look at the numbers of hits, and God, I mean, the one game was like 116, and there was probably 12, right? I think both teams have some big hitters. You take a look at their blue line, a couple of guys up in front. I think you may have the same kind of game going on and then a big hit. And then, so I think you're going to see a higher number of bigger hits, and that will then just be kind of played out on normal hits. The rest of the game is going to look, I think in some of the series, Boston, Washington, it seemed like every hit was big. They didn't count any little ones, and they were all big ones. I think that's going to be a part of this, but I don't think it's true of the whole lineups on both teams. But there's hitters now on both these teams.
Thanks very much, Coach. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back with you.
That'll do it for the media availability this morning. Just final thought going into game one.
Well, let's get going, right? There's going to have one team with lots of energy. You're going to have another team that's just giving her because of the coming back from 3 games down and 2 games down in a series to win in 7. So a lot of fun. Opening 10 minutes is going to be a blast.
If you can't wait until the 6:30 p.m. Central Time puck drop, we do have some things that you can do this afternoon. First off, of course, go to winnipegjets.com. And while you're there, you can find episode 109 of the Ground Control podcast. It dropped late yesterday, just ahead of the second round series between the Jets and the Canadiens. We talk about that on this episode, plus a conversation with Winnipeg product Jennifer Botterill, who is now working with Sportsnet as an analyst. We dive into that, and also the extremely important conversation about which ice cream is best in Winnipeg. Get the Ground Control podcast, as well as the Flyby podcast, which Jamie Thomas is on, along with Paul Edmonds of 680 CJOB every single Jets game day. That's all on winnipegjets.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And Jets fans, now is the time to buy your Winnipeg Jets 50-50 tickets. Buy yours online before the end of the third period of today's game to be included in the draw. Plus, in the playoffs, there are more chances to win with a $5,000 early bird draw every game day and secondary draws of up to $25,000 occurring whenever the pot reaches another $100,000 mark. The overall winner will take home half of the total jackpot, with all proceeds in support of the True North Youth Foundation. Buy your 50-50 tickets now at winnipegjets.com/5050. That's winnipegjets.com/5050. And finally, from Jets Gear, new 2021 playoffs merchandise is now available for the 2021 Stanley Cup Playoffs. Show your support for the Winnipeg Jets with one of these new items. Look at those things. Available in-store at Jets Gear locations and online at TrueNorthShop.com, with local delivery available within the city of Winnipeg limits. Jets Gear, shop where the players shop. A big thank you to Jamie Thomas of 680 CJOB joining us on a game day.
You're like the announcer on Price is Right that goes through every one of the products.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Nailed it.
It's actually an audition.
That's right.
Maybe
it's time to move on. I've accomplished everything I need to accomplish here. I'm moving on. Price is Right.
I've been working on that voice for a while. So big thank you to Jamie Thomas, of course, Daniel Moss downstairs, and Tyler Esquivel, who did some work behind the scenes on the program as well. We will see you after the game for the Jets TV Live post-game show presented by Budweiser. Until then, enjoy the day and enjoy the game.